Now, poster presentations really are a wonderful way to get your work out there and to be involved with the NCFR conference. They're pretty friendly, and they tend to be a lot less intimidating, especially to first-time conference attendees and to students. Now, the purpose of a poster is to synthesize the results of your research and to present practical applications and or policy implications in a graphic visual representation, as Jessica just mentioned. So you're going to want to present very eye-catching materials that will have a variety of components like title, short abstract, graphs and other visuals, and conclusions and implications that do need to fit on a 4x8 poster board. Now, it's not necessary to spend a lot of money, especially if your budget doesn't allow for it, have it professionally done on a big single laminated sheet. Moreover, the material just needs to be in large type that is at least visible about 3 to 6 feet away. You want to keep in mind that you'll need to stay by your poster for the entire session, which should be 90 full minutes, unless you are presenting your poster on a Saturday, which will be about 45 minutes. People will walk by your poster, and you're going to need to be ready to answer questions as people stop by. So this is going to be a good time for you to think about, before you're heading into your poster, a 2-minute elevator speech to kind of get the conversation rolling. So what this is how can you, a lot of times people will come by and will say, so tell me about your work. Well, you don't have 30 minutes to just go on and talk about your work, right? You need to be able to condense that down in a very brief way that conveys, the major points of your work. So it's a good idea to try and practice this with various friends or colleagues or mentors who can kind of guide you through developing a truncated way to present your information. A couple more helpful notes would be to remember to print handouts ahead of time before you get to the conference. On these handouts, you can prepare an executive summary of your presentation, which is going to be necessary because there is no audiovisual equipment that can be used during a poster presentation. Handouts can also include any references maybe that you couldn't fit onto your poster, as well as your own personal contact information. And it's also a good idea to have business cards right next to your poster that you can pass out to people who might have more questions or want to network with you later on. And in the end, posters really are a great way to meet people because you're standing around, in a big group. Most likely, you're going to be grouped with other posters who do share your similar interest. And when people might not be walking by or asking you questions, you can strike up conversations with other people who are standing next to you, also presenting their work. So it's a really, really wonderful way to kind of talk about your work, but also get to meet some new people.
So Katie and I are going to take the time to talk to you about a few of the posters that we have done just to kind of clue you into what a poster might look like. So this is an example of a quantitative poster that I presented a few years ago at the NCFR conference. And just wanted to point out some things to consider when you're preparing your poster. You'll notice that it's colorful, it kind of draws your attention, but you want to make sure that your name and affiliation is prominently displayed so people passing by will know who you are. Generally, posters are a lesson in less is more. This was a poster that I had done earlier in my training, and I would probably tone down the text a little bit more and add more bullet points instead of paragraphs like I do in the background section here. Even though this is a quantitative poster, you'll also notice that there are very few numbers in my results section. Numerical tables are difficult for people to process quickly, so visuals and figures really help people follow along as you present your research in conversation format. Finally, it's also a really good idea to include contact information or a quick link to your student or new professional page, or a link to the article if it's been accepted for publication prior to the conference presentation. Oftentimes people will use a thumbtack to post business cards next to your poster or handouts like Katie had suggested, but you want to make sure that you have these things readily available so that people can contact you after the conference if they want to cite your work or ask you additional questions about the research that you're doing.
So I will take a few minutes to talk about qualitative poster presentations, and as Jessica mentioned, less is definitely more, and that certainly pertains to qualitative work as well. So this poster I did a few years ago, and I'm definitely someone like I think a lot of people can be who are qualitative social scientists. I definitely can struggle with limiting the amount of text that I put onto the poster, but that is still very important to do is, as qualitative researchers, it is our job to speak to people and to listen to their experiences and collect their stories, and get their words down. So it's really important, though, that when we do put our work onto a poster, we do try to truncate their words into shorter sentences and shorter phrases to try to save space, of course, without losing the meaning of the data. But for qualitative posters, I always try to keep in mind, white space is my friend. Katie, remember that. That's what I tell myself. Try to utilize spacing and bullet points to break up the monotony of paragraphs and text. Definitely include, as Jessica talked about, visual representations and charts and graphics the best way you can to try to tell that story of your data. A personal tip to give you, what I like to do is when I'm attending conferences, actually to take photographs of other people's posters with their permission, of course. But that's a really great way to see how other people do it, right? How other people take quantitative and qualitative work and present it as a poster, and you can kind of get some really great inspiration. A couple other things, too, is to make sure that you stick to big picture ideas, key points. I like to keep the references off of my poster just so I can kind of include more information in about the actual work onto the poster and leave those references on a handout, as I mentioned earlier. I also do like to bring, as I said, business cards to my presentation, and sometimes I'll also have a blank sheet of paper right there and a pen. And interested parties, as they're walking by, can write down their own information, and then I can email them out later as a way to connect.